On the crisp morning of November 8, 1944, urgent reports crackle through the radios at Achmer Airfield. A massive Allied bomber formation approaches. The base erupts into frenzied activity. The Luftwaffe's highest-scoring ace, Walter Nowotny, rushes to his Messerschmitt Me 262. In his haste, he leaves behind the lucky trousers that have accompanied him through over 250 victories. Nowotny straps himself into the cockpit of the revolutionary jet fighter. Its sleek form starkly contrasts the propeller-driven aircraft dotting the tarmac. But as the pilot flips switches and dials, the Me 262's turbines refuse to start. Precious minutes slip away. Ground crews swarm the aircraft, working frantically to bring the engines to life. In the distance, the sound of combat grows louder. Nowotny's wingmen are already engaged, facing overwhelming odds. Finally, with a roar, the turbines ignite. Nowotny takes off, pushing his jet to its limits. He climbs rapidly, alone, racing to join the fray. His radio confirms 2 swift victories. A B-24 Liberator and a P-51 Mustang have fallen to his guns. For a moment, it seems the ace's luck has turned. Suddenly, a chilling transmission cuts through the airwaves. The radio operator at the airfield hears Nowotny's voice, quote, "I'm on fire." Walter Nowotny's rise to become one of the Luftwaffe's top-scoring aces almost ended before it truly began. On July 19, 1941, flying with the 9th Staffel of Jagdgeschwader 54, known as the Devil Squadron for their fearsome insignia of a grinning red Satan's head, the 20-year-old pilot flew his Messerschmitt Bf-109 on his 24th mission on the Eastern Theater. In quick succession, he shot down 2 or 3 Soviet Polikarpov I-153 biplanes, marking his first trio of victories. But this moment of triumph would be fleeting, as enemy fire delivered a devastating hit to his engine, sending him into a dangerous descent deep behind enemy lines. Facing the grim prospect of capture, he made a split-second decision to turn toward the Baltic Sea, preferring the uncertainty of the open water over the near-certain fate of becoming a prisoner of war in Soviet hands. Ditching into the icy Gulf of Riga, he clambered into his one-man life raft and breathed a sigh of relief. But his fight for survival had only just begun. Alone, and with nothing but his Mauser pistol, Nowotny faced the daunting task of paddling toward a distant shore, some 40 miles away. On 2 occasions, German fighters roared overhead, but his frantic shots were unnoticed. The relentless sun scorched his skin for hours as dehydration and exhaustion set in, while merciless waves constantly splashed cold water into his tiny dinghy. As night fell on the second day, Nowotny's heart raced when 2 Soviet destroyers passed alarmingly close. To his luck, they too failed to spot him. At night, the young pilot could hear the distant boom of German artillery targeting the Russian ships, a reminder that help existed somewhere beyond the horizon. By the morning, however, despair crept into Nowotny's mind. Weakened and delirious, he contemplated giving up, even going as far as scribbling a farewell note. During sleep, the currents took control, and the pilot awoke on the 3rd day to find himself near the shore. Summoning his last reserves of strength, Nowotny paddled frantically toward the sand, collapsing as soon as he reached dry land. Once he regained consciousness, he realized he'd been saved by 2 Latvian auxiliaries who had discovered him washed ashore. Now, having survived almost certain doom, Walter Nowotny's remarkable career truly began. Throughout his combat days, Walter Nowotny always wore the same pair of trousers he had on during those 3 perilous days adrift in the Gulf of Riga. To him, the pants seemed to carry a peculiar luck that he refused to abandon. After his remarkable recovery, Nowotny swiftly returned to action. On July 31, 1941, mere days after his ordeal, he downed a Beriev MBR-2 flying boat near Saaremaa and an Ilyushin DB-3 bomber further south. By year's end, his score had climbed to around 10 victories, hinting at his exceptional combat skills. As the harsh winter of the Eastern Front yielded to 1942, Nowotny's aerial prowess only intensified. on July 11th, amid fierce fighting over the Volkhov bridgehead. In the famous Battle of Lyuban, he claimed his 30th and 31st victories. A little over a week later, Nowotny achieved the rare distinction of becoming an ace in a day, downing 5 Soviet aircraft in a single mission. Pushing his limits further, he surpassed this feat on August 2nd, shooting down an incredible 7 enemies. Nowotny's boldness reached new heights on August 11th, when, after downing 3 enemy aircraft, the daring lieutenant wasn't content to simply return to base. Despite his Bf-109 bearing the scars of intense combat, he pushed on, and the pilot swept low over his airfield, engines growling, executing 3 victory passes in quick succession. Upon landing, however, the damaged controls gave way, sending his fighter tumbling across the runway in a spray of dirt and metal. After emerging from the cockpit, Nowotny was bruised, yet grinning. That fall, having amassed an impressive 56 aerial victories, recognizing his extraordinary leadership and tactical acumen, the Luftwaffe promoted Nowotny on October 25, 1942, appointing him Staffelkapitän of the 1st Staffel of JG-54. Now a battle-hardened combat leader, Nowotny stood ready to face new challenges as the war grew increasingly brutal for the Axis powers. In January 1943, JG-54 began transitioning to the Focke-Wulf FW-190, a fighter renowned for its ruggedness, firepower, and agility, qualities that gave Luftwaffe pilots a decisive edge over Soviet adversaries. With this new model, Nowotny's victory rate surged, often claiming more than 2 planes a day. That same year, Nowotny joined forces with his trusted wingman Karl Schurer, along with Anton Dobele and Rudolf Rademacher, forming the Nowotny Schwarm, a powerful team also dubbed the Chain of Devils. Together, they became the Luftwaffe's most successful squad, amassing 524 combined downings. At just 22, Nowotny reached his 100th victory on June 15, 1943, during his 344th combat mission, becoming the 42nd Luftwaffe pilot to hit this milestone. But he was far from finished. August saw him embark on an extraordinary streak, downing 49 aircraft in a single month, cementing his place in Luftwaffe lore. On September 1st, he became a double ace in a day, taking down 10 enemy aircraft in just 2 sorties, pushing his total to 183. In the next 72 hours, he boosted that tally to 189, earning him the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves. Before he could receive the award, Nowotny reached 200 victories on September 8th. By the 15th, his count had soared to 214, making him the Luftwaffe's top-scoring pilot at that time. Finally, on September 22nd, at the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters, Nowotny received his award from Adolf Hitler himself. On October 15, 1943, Walter Nowotny, now a Hauptmann captain, claimed his 250th aerial victory, a record-breaking achievement in the Luftwaffe. After a brief respite, in late October 1943, Nowotny returned to the front, once again leading his trusted wingman, Karl Schurer, into combat. However, this ended abruptly in November, when Schurer suffered severe injuries after a low-altitude bailout, leading to a replacement with Unteroffizier Ernst Richter. Nowotny and Richter claimed their final 2 victories on the Eastern Front on November 15, 1943, bringing the former's confirmed total to 255, with another 50 unconfirmed. Recognizing the risks he faced, especially now given his global fame, the High Command withdrew Nowotny from active combat and reassigned him. Over the next few months, Nowotny became central to the Reich's propaganda machine efforts. The pilot toured Germany, meeting soldiers, civilians, and factory workers, delivering speeches to boost morale and maintain public support for the war. His image symbolized the Luftwaffe's strength to the nation, even as World War II's outlook grew increasingly challenging for them. In April 1944, Nowotny's path shifted when he was appointed to lead Schurlegeschwader 101, a training unit for new pilots. Though stationed away from his beloved front lines, the 23-year-old battle-hardened pilot approached this role with his characteristic dedication. Taking the opportunity to share combat experience and leadership skills, quickly earned him recognition as one of the Luftwaffe's finest instructors. In April 1944, as Nowotny honed the skills of the Luftwaffe's newest recruits, a groundbreaking aircraft emerged, the Messerschmitt Me 262. This jet-powered fighter promised to revolutionize aerial combat. However, its path from design to deployment proved far from smooth. Technical issues plagued early development, hampering progress. Adding to these challenges, Hitler's misguided insistence on using the aircraft as a bomber further delayed its deployment in its intended fighter role. These setbacks postponed the Me 262's potential impact on the war effort. By mid-1944, with Allied bombers wreaking havoc on German cities, the Luftwaffe High Command recognized the urgent need to showcase the Me 262's true potential as a fighter and began looking for a leader who possessed the necessary boldness and skill to introduce this advanced aircraft to frontline service as soon and as devastating as possible. Naturally, Walter Nowotny emerged as the Führer's top choice to lead this pioneering effort. In September 1944, the accomplished pilot was appointed to command Kommando Nowotny, the Luftwaffe's first jet fighter unit. Operating from airfields near Osnabrück, this highly specialized unit was tasked with bringing the revolutionary Me 262 into combat operations, but this would be no easy feat. Not only did they have to engage enemy aircraft, but they also grappled with the Me 262's early mechanical quirks and the steep learning curve of developing entirely new tactics for jet warfare. On October 7th, Nowotny scored his first aerial victory on the Western Front, downing a B-24 Liberator bomber, marking his 256th overall. However, his success was overshadowed by mounting difficulties, such as high losses and limited achievements, causing growing concern among the High Command, namely Generals Alfred Keller and Adolf Galland. On November 7, 1944, tensions reached a critical point. Generals Keller and Galland arrived at Achmer Airfield for an inspection. Galland, familiar with the unit from previous visits, remained to confront the ongoing challenges. In the barracks, pilots gathered, openly voicing doubts about the Me 262's combat readiness. The revolutionary jet fighter's potential seemed overshadowed by persistent operational setbacks. On the morning of November 8, 1944, the generals arrived again at Kommando Nowotny's post and made a bold statement. The aces of the past few years had become cowards, and the Luftwaffe was in danger of losing its fighting spirit. But fate had other plans. As tensions simmered, urgent news crackled through. A massive Allied bomber formation was bearing down on their position. In an instant, the airfield burst into action. Two pairs of Me 262s were swiftly prepared for takeoff, Erich Büttner and Franz Schall, with Nowotny and Gunther Wegmann close behind. In the frenzied rush, adrenaline coursing through his veins, Nowotny made a fateful oversight. His lucky trousers, faithful companions since his Gulf of Riga ordeal, were forgotten in his quarters. The mission was wrong from the beginning, as Büttner's sortie was grounded by a punctured tire, while Nowotny's turbines stubbornly refused to start. As seconds stretched into agonizing delays, Schall and Wegmann had already engaged the enemy. By the time the renowned ace finally lifted off, his wingmen were retreating, their aircraft battered by the intense aerial duel. Within moments, Nowotny found himself alone, facing the incoming bombers against impossible odds. Yet, the intrepid pilot soared onwards, his determination unshaken. Two enemy aircraft fell to his guns in rapid succession. First a B-24 Liberator heavy bomber, then a P-51 Mustang fighter. But the tide of battle turned quickly. One of Nowotny's engines began to falter, leaving him vulnerable and isolated. In the chaos, he managed one last cryptic transmission. Helmut Lennertz, monitoring communications that day, recalled, quote, "I remember Nowotny's crash very well. Feldwebel Goslar, a radio operator with our unit, had set up a radio on the airfield. Over this set, I and many others listened to the radio communications with Nowotny's aircraft. His last words were 'I'm on fire' or 'it's on fire.'" Moments later, Nowotny's Me 262 was seen plummeting in a spiral, and the aircraft crashed near Giuseppe, marking the tragic end of the Luftwaffe's most celebrated ace. Whether Allied fighters took him down or his failing engine betrayed him will remain a World War II mystery. Amidst the twisted metal, searchers recovered only his left hand and fragments of his diamond's decoration. The loss of their leader cast a pall over Commando Nowotny, and with their morale shattered, the unit was swiftly disbanded. Following the brave leader's demise, a stone memorial rose, incorporating remnants of Nowotny's Me-262. The plane bore a solemn inscription, quote, "Here, on the 8th of November, 1944, following 258 aerial victories, the recipient of the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, swords, and diamonds, Major Walter Nowotny, fell for the people and the fatherland."